Now we want to ask ourselves, we saw what our expected profit was when we bid $135,000. And remember, this number right here doesn't mean anything. It's just a profit for this specific instance. If we want to know the mean profit, again, we want to come to Browse Results and be able to see it through here. And for instance, here we saw our mean profit was $218. But what is our optimal profit, in the sense that we can bid $135,000, but what if we want to try a lot of different values to know which bid actually leads to the highest mean profit? Well, to try a lot of different values, we could, for instance, put in a different value and then run the simulation, put in a different value, run the simulation. But there's an easier way to do that, which is another great thing about at risk. It's called a risk sim table. So over here in, I'm going to start here in this cell, and we're going to basically enter here a lot of different values of our bid that we want to test out. So we'll just call this part simulation outputs over here. And first thing we're going to have is our simulation number. And I'm going to leave column K blank for now. You'll see why in a minute. And here for simulation number, we're going to do 10 simulation runs, because we're going to try 10 different bids out from 105,000 to 150,000. For the potential bid, these are the bids that we want at risk to check. So 105, 110,000, and we can drag that over and get 150,000. And we'll set the formatting up so it looks nice there. For the next thing we want to know is, for each one of these scenarios, what's the mean profit? What's the standard deviation of profit? Let's say, what's the probability the profit is less than some number? And here, this is why we left that cell blank, because for instance, we might want to know what's the probability the profit's less than negative 10,000. So putting it in a different cell allows us to change it and return that value. And here we might want to know the nth percentile. So if we want to know the 5th percentile, we put in 0.05 there. And for instance, here at the end, we might know the probability that you win. So this is the first step in setting up a risk sim table. You just set your simulation numbers 1 through 10, and you also set down the values that you wanted to test. Now for the second step is to actually, in this output table, put some summary measures that you want to check out. So for mean profit, we're going to use the function equals risk mean. And for that, we're going to first come to what we want it to tell us about, and that's the profit. So risk mean profit. So tell me the mean profit for simulation number 1. So it takes 2 arguments. I could just do risk mean, and it would give me the results for simulation 1, but here I want to know the mean profit for simulation 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I put a comma and then the simulation number, and that'll tell me for which simulation number I'm looking for the profit. And I can copy this all the way over, and you might get zeros or NAs for now, and that's okay. Once you run the actual simulations, those will fill in with the right numbers. So for instance, once we actually run these simulations, this cell right here will tell me, well, what was the profit, the mean profit for simulation number 3 when my bid was 115,000. And that way we'll be able to see, can take all these values and look at the one that has the highest mean profit and maybe consider going with that bid. Standard deviation of profit is this function risk standard deviation. And again, profit, want to know the standard deviation of profit, and we put our simulation number in as well. And here I'm going to just copy this format down there. Probability of the profit is less than negative 10,000 we're going to use risk target. This tells you for a given outcome variable, in this case profit, and a given profit level number, for instance, here we have negative 10,000, and return the probability, or basically the estimate of the probability, the proportion of iterations for which the profit was less than negative 10,000. The last argument you have to give it is the simulation number, and we'll copy that all the way across, and we'll also do Control-Shift-1 so that you get the decimals there. For the nth percentile, we're going to set this equal to risk percentile, and again we're going to want to know profit, the percentile, and the simulation number. Remember, I F4'd the percentiles when I copy it over. It'll be fixed. And what this returns is basically the number, the profit, such that the probability of being below that profit is 0.05. And the probability of winning, and you can see when I change this, for instance, to 0.1, we get the change for the first simulation. And if I change this to 0, we can also get changes all the way across. So I'm going to set these as they were. And the probability of winning is risk mean of did I win? And again, we also have to tell it for which simulation we want that. So for instance here, and again I haven't really run this yet, but what this will tell me is for simulation 1, when my potential bid is $105,000, what's my probability of winning? And again, don't trust any of these values yet because we haven't actually run the simulations yet. So this is the second step in setting up a risk sim table, in the sense that you enter the output functions that you want, and you do it by using functions like risk mean to tell you the mean profit, and comma, and you tell it for which simulation number you want. I'm going to conditionally format this so that the simulation number with the highest mean profit stands out. So I'm going to highlight these, go to conditional formatting, and do top bottom rules, and I want to know the top 10 items, and I want to know the top 1 item. So that's the second step in setting up the risk sim table. The third step in setting up a risk sim table is to come over here and say, okay, our bid, right now we have $135,000 typed in there. We really wanted to test a multitude of values from 105,000 to 150,000. So I do risk sim table from 105 to 150. And what this will do is for each simulation number, it'll put in one of these different values. So that even though it says 105,000 right now, it's just returning the first one. When we run the 10 simulations, it'll try this one, and then try this one, and then try this one. The last thing we want to do in at risk is to set the number of simulations. The fourth step, set the number of simulations to the number of potential things that you want to try. So here we have 10 potential bids we want to try. So I set the number of simulations to 10. Now I'm all set to start. I've set up my risk sim table. I click on Start Simulation. And I'm going to close this for now. And for instance, let's go back to this table. We see that we have the 10 simulations for each of these bids. We see that the mean profit is highest for simulation number 4, which corresponds to a potential bid of 120,000. So this might suggest if we wanted to maximize our mean profit, we would bid $120,000 because that would lead to, on average, $5,000 of mean profit. I'm going to end this here because this is how to set it up, and in the next module we'll learn how to interpret the results.